Hello, this is Cryptolyze. I hope you are well. This Friday, 15 December 2023. We meet today to talk about ADA, Cardano's crypto. As usual, we will divide this video into two parts. A fundamental part, we will come back to what Cardano is, the role of ADA and Cardano, and then we will go to the graphs to project short, medium, long-term on purchase prices, sale prices, and that starts right away. If you want to train and really enjoy bull running, it's simple. There is perfect, complete, free training available. It's through an educational journey that teaches you everything about blockchain, crypto, investment, technical analysis, and trading. All this for free in comments and descriptions. You have exercises, multiple choice questions, modules, videos, guides, everything to help you in your progress. What is Cardano? Cardano is a blockchain which aims to be an Ethereum killer. Even if it does not present itself as such, or at least now, nevertheless it is really the representation that they were able to have. It is to be the blockchain that is built for the future, and that secures the future. It's between Layer 1 and Layer 0. Basically, they really wanted to define themselves as a Layer 0. But little by little, they are moving towards the notion of interoperability carried by the blockchain in itself. Same, but it still looks a lot like a big Layer 1. And little by little, it's moving towards that. But what is interesting, especially at the level of Cardano, it is one, his creation. So already, at the level of the founder of Cardano, he was one of the co-founders of Ethereum. And secondly, the way in which it is built. You have to understand that ADA and Cardano, they made a really cheeky bet to build slowly in a crypto world where everything moves very quickly. The principle is the following, that is to say that they will develop. They will take the time to develop little by little, to carry out the different developments little by little, but which will be at a pace, and which will be a lot lower than all other blockchains that can happen. As the technologies arrive, and this is precisely the strength of Cardano, and at the same time its weakness, it is ire that they take time, but they build something which is solid, in which we have normally a blockchain that is truly resilient. But the problem linked to that also means that deliveries of new versions are relatively rare. Despite the fact that we have a lot of developers working on ADA Cardano, as we will see later, we have versions that perhaps do not evolve as quickly as other blockchains, or as what we would wish ourselves. It must be understood that blockchain is a means of use for developers of decentralized applications, so it is a set of tools made available to these developers to build decentralized applications. It is not necessarily very simple with ADA Cardano compared to other blockchains which have a development kit which is very extensive and which continues to expand, in which we have functionalities which are there precisely to help developers to improve skills quickly, which is not necessarily the case of ADA Cardano, in any case less the case at ADA Cardano, and which makes certain developments and therefore the arrival of certain projects more complex. However, when we look at it, we still have an activity that is relatively impressive. The green candles here are the representation of commits, so the number of times code is pushed to the ADA Cardano project, and the red bar represents the number of developers. And when you have seen a little bit of the different videos that I've been able to make around the different projects, you quickly realize that in fact, it is a project that is still relatively active, with on average 30 developers and 500 commits. So we are really on something that is very, very active for a blockchain that has existed for a long time. And yes, because ADA Cardano has been around for a long time. We are going to talk about tokenomics, which is rather classic, in which we still have a little dilution to arrive because we have 78 of supply in circulation, and we look at the diluted market cap. We are at 28 billion, so big market cap. And this is where it poses a problem when we make the correlation between the TVL and the market cap. This means that we already have a blockchain that is already highly valued, really very highly valued, in relation to market value. Understand that the relationship between the two is very important, because what determines that a blockchain is interesting and profitable is in particular the total value lock and the transaction volume, which is generated by this total value lock in relation to the representation of the addition of this token. So it is really the correlation between the two which determines the weight, and it is true that ADA Cardano is one of the lowest ratios that can exist, at least as it stands, in the top 50 at the level of different blockchains. And that's why you just have to be careful about that. It is a project which is developing slowly, and which is already very valued because we have communication, which is not made by ADA by Cardano, but which is made by the community which owns ADA, in which we will see, for example, here. There you go. We will see, well, overall, it is for limit advertising through news, in which we will systematically have news around ADA. Whether on the fact that the whales are in the process of buying, that we have an explosion of 1,700 which could arrive tomorrow, we always have this type of news, and it is very complicated. So it's positive for generally building up the hype, but it's very complicated when you want to make a pure investment. When you see that, you say to yourself, well, it's something that's a bit scammy, whereas is not the case, and it's really a shame, this over-communication of the community around ADA Cardano on things that are not interesting. For what? Because we must understand that in 2020-2021, there were a lot of maximalist Cardanos who arrived by precisely buying ADA, with things behind them that were pushed to certain influencers, certain media, some people, that you could simply be an annuitant with ADA Cardano, and that it was enough to own a certain number of ADA to be an annuitant for life. Note that it was a moment when we were in the middle of a peak, and therefore, obviously, it is very complicated afterwards. However, it must be understood that few people who were present at that time are still present with ADA, or in any case, do not hesitate to say it in the comments if this is the case, and how you lived precisely this fall, and how you agreed not to sell and to maintain your position. What made you maintain your position? In any case, I'm interested in getting your feedback. At the current state, so 1R December 2023, we have a development report which has been given, in which we have 150 projects which have been launched. Because it is important, it is not also especially the TVL, but it is the projects that are present on the blockchain. The more projects we have, the more interesting it is, the more people we have who come, the more TVL we have, the more transactions we have, and the more profitable it is. The more profitable it is, the closer we get to this threshold between precisely the diluted market cap and the TVL and the transaction volume, which helps determine the profitability of a blockchain. However, what is interesting here is the 1,300 projects which are currently under construction. So yes, you just have to be careful with the calculation methodology, okay? Because there is no 1,300 that are currently being built. There is 1,304 that have started their construction and have not yet entered the game lunch. So that includes, and this is very important, the number of abandoned projects, okay? The problem is that we don't have this visibility. This is the discussion that I had in particular with one of the CMs of ADA Cardano on this point, in which we do not have visibility, which is a real shame. It is that we don't actually know how many projects are being built on ADA Cardano. And it's true that the big projects that I personally follow are not on ADA Cardano, okay? So we don't know. It's the representation of the projects that are on it. Having yet another copy of AAV for me does not generate interest in a protocol, okay? Really, we need big projects that are set up on ADA Cardano. Why not? Or that even develop on ADA Cardano. And this is where we will really have the valuation that can happen. And this is where we will see whether or not ADA Cardano manages to satisfy these needs and precisely manages to provide the necessary elements to be able to break out on the next bull run. So it was a little long, I think more that I wanted to come back to certain points. Now we are going to attack the technical part, which risks being perhaps a little faster than expected, because we have habit, accumulation phase, distribution phase. We arrive in the sign of weakness. We have the habit. What is it? It is the phase of reaccumulation and accumulation that we find in a drop in a macro distribution, in which we have these types of patterns with behind bearish breakouts and very strong bearish pressure. A breakpoint which is the stopping of the bearish trend, in which we have a retracement, so which is here for those who have usually an AR, and then we will either look for liquidity or retest. We went to look for liquidity once, we went to retest this liquidity, so there we have a new accumulation, and then we have the explosion with the rupture here of this candle. Very important candle, which represents the passage, and in any case the announcement of the Fed to pursue a certain number of cryptos as securities. What ensures is that, and we consolidated above, lateralized and then burst with the break. And what is interesting is that the bullish acceleration took place last week with a huge candle in which we liquidated and made all the shorters here who were present there. And we went to retest the upper part here of the accumulation. From wick off, okay? We went to retest this part here, which was very important. We have refilled the entire small part, what we call bleeding here. So it is the fact of having a downward trend which is very, very marked, and in which we will have a little grinding like that which will take place, and very slowly, in fact, we will disappear. And that's very negative when we actually see that in a crypto. It's very, very negative. That's what we see here. Generally, what we like to see is this. A lateralization. Really something that is lateral, not something that will be going down. As long as we don't have this lateralization, it's complicated. The fact of having had lateralization is rather positive, and allows us to have a relatively upward momentum on its construction, and which will potentially allow for a much stronger acceleration. The much stronger acceleration will happen on the consolidation above this level, in which we will consolidate above the break of May and June 2022. Terra Luna Celsius, very complicated level, so we must consolidate above to then start the rise again. There we will have a real signal. Well, the problem is that we still left a lot of imbalances, so it is very likely to go and retest the 0.40 here to actually consolidate this level and then leave again. That could be a very good entry for. However, if you are interested in this project, don't forget what I told you in fundamental part, which is that we have a diluted cap brand which is already important, and therefore inevitably, in terms of progression, we will have multiples which will always be less important than a TVL already, of something which is in a top 100 and no longer in a top 5, top 10 like the ADA Cardano. So we could aim for a wave 1, an Elliotist wave 2 to prepare a big wave 3, in which we would potentially look here for a 1,618 already. Initially, I think the ATH would not be bad in the 3, and then we could go and look here for the 1,618 Fibonacci extension at the end of the bull run with a lot of projects coming out, a big hype which is at the level of ADA Cardano with a token which could come close to the 5 for a brand with a diluted cap, which would be valued nonetheless 200 billion. So it remains relatively substantial. So this implies that there must still be a lot of applications, that we really have a very good bull run, whether at the end of the bull run, in which we have a Cardano ADA which really manages to making its place, and perhaps also managing to catch up in terms of functional blocks to attract new developers with incentives, etc. Quite classic. I think you start to get used to what it takes to be able to achieve these goals. I hope that in any case you liked this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a like and a comment. It always makes me very happy. And we'll see you tomorrow for the weekly, in which we are going to come back to many, many things at the macroeconomic level, because there are quite a few things that are moving at the end of the year to prepare for 2024.